For those of you who don't know me, I have two boys, young men. One's 30 and one's 21. And my oldest, Ben, was born when I was already a Buddhist. I was already involved with Triratna, and I was ordained a couple of years after he was born when I was 2. So the whole context of my parenting has been very much within a Buddhist context. And we were just saying actually after this morning, the three of us, it's just so interesting to be reflecting on these issues and to have a forum to just think about them, because that didn't exist, I think, when all of us were parents. Even although the three of us were parents here in Sheffield, there wasn't really sufficient sort of momentum around people being parents, so we didn't particularly get together to have discussions. So it's just really interesting, just because there are no answers. There's no right answers, no right way to be a parent, there's no right way to be a Buddhist parent, and the precepts are very much training principles that we're putting into action, and again, there's a huge sort of continuum alongside of that. So I'm talking about, or I've entitled it, growing out of, or not giving up, but growing up, the practice of the third precept. So just to remind you what the third precept is, and I do, so the negative form is, I undertake to abstain from sexual misconduct. I do think it's worth, from time to time, looking at the negative forms of the precepts, because they're it's just quite interesting to remind ourselves what they are, because we often look at positive formulation. And which is, with stillness, simplicity and contentment, I purify my body. So it's a huge topic, which is very far-reaching in its implications. As we practice the third precept more deeply, it's actually leading us towards the pure abodes, the Brahma Viharas, which are sublime states of deep contentment, free of craving and desire. So, it's the sort of third precept is pointing us to a very elevated state of consciousness. Well, all the precepts actually are pointing us towards the enlightened state of consciousness. But it seems particularly more obvious somehow. Or anyway, that's where the third precept's pointing us to. So I'm just going to talk about 2 points in relation to this precept, which are both aspects of cultivating contentment. So I find the positive form third precept is just really beautiful. We're cultivating stillness, simplicity and contentment. So I find that a very sort of lovely set of words with their connotations. And I went and looked at contentment. So it's defined as satisfied, which is interesting. We've just been talking about being dissatisfied. Quietly happy, peace of mind, and there are other associations with it, such as serene, ease of mind, heart's ease, purr with contentment. Really like that one. Imagine yourself just purring with contentment. Free of worry, just a sort of sense of freedom. So I think one very important aspect of this precept is developing contentment with our children's father or mother, and with the living situation and sexual partner we have with people. I think that's a really, really important aspect of this precept.
It's not an easy one.
So never said being a Buddhist was easy. So it's about feeling content with the choices that we've made and cultivating that, so that we feel increasingly satisfied and we're not looking beyond our immediate situation or beyond the people that we're in those relationships with, that actually you're not looking elsewhere. We are developing a sense of contentment and satisfaction with the situation that we're in. It's very easy to fall in love. It's just very easy for our energy to latch on to another person. And I think that falling in love is a kind of madness in which we become blind, irrational and foolish and don't see things clearly. I'm sure that we've all had the experience of being in love and then falling out of love. It's like, you know, the scales remove from your eyes, and I've certainly thought, how on earth did I even consider that this person was, you know, worth all that time and attention? It's just very sobering, isn't it, when that kind of happens? And this sense, you know, I think that whole aspect of falling in love is communicated very well in Shakespeare's play A Midsummer Night's Dream, where I'm sure you've all come across it. The king of the fairies, Oberon, is cross with his wife Titania, who's the queen of the fairies. So he gives her a potion that means she's going to fall in love with the next object that she sees, and she happens to see this rather foolish man, Bottom, who's had a spell put on him, and he's got an ass's head. So this, you know, gorgeous, refined, sort of fairy-like queen falls in love with this rather earthy man with an ass's head, and you know, she lavishes upon him all her love and etc., etc. And then the spell's removed, and she's just horrified at what she's been doing. You know, I think that just puts falling in love in its context. It's not actually a very good basis for relationships. And I think once we've got children, and as Buddhists, we really need to be developing a sense of loyalty and contentment with the situation that we're in. And alongside of, you know, working with any feelings of being attracted elsewhere, I think we also need to be developing an open and warm communication with our spouse, other parent, whoever. And yes, if we do fall in love, we just need to work with it and not act. The precepts we've been talking about are all the body precepts. You know, you get body, speech and mind. So, you know, we just have to not act on that and work with it. It is just energy, you know, that sexual craving, that attraction, it's just energy. I know it's really strong, and the Buddha did say, didn't he, if there was another force in the world as strong as sexual attraction, then there would be no hope for spiritual life, something like that. So, you know, I'm not saying it's easy, and that attraction is very, very strong, but we just have to, if it has latched onto an object which would be unwise to pursue, we just have to work with that. And, you know, people do and can work with it. I mean, I think it's also not made easy for us because our society upholds the ideal of romantic sexual love. It's a very strong ideal that your sexual partner, you know, is the be-all and end-all of, can be the be-all and end-all of life, everything for you. And I think we need to be growing out of that myth. We need to see that myth for what it is and grow beyond it. And just see falling in love for what it is, which is a deluded state, and let it pass. The Buddha had a very different sort sort of view of relationships, the sort of romantic myth. As far as I know, he doesn't communicate that in the Holy Canon anywhere. What he does say in the advice to the layman Sigala is that he advocates a mandala of relationships in which he's giving equal weight to a whole range of relationships. So it's really worth, if you don't know, it's really worth looking at actually. It's very interesting what he says. But so we've got our own parents, our relationship with our parents, people who've taught us and trained us, our children and our sexual partner, our friends and companions, our work colleagues, and our spiritual friends and spiritual teachers. So we've got this whole, as human beings, we operate within a whole context, mandala of different relationships, and they're all important and they all give us different things. So I think it's, and the Buddha gives them all sort of equal weight. So I think it's important to put our sort of family relationships in that bigger context, because yes, they are important, but these other things are important too. So that was one area that I wanted to touch on. And then the second area I want to raise, probably equally difficult, which is thinking about how to create a home environment in which there's an element of simplicity and contentment, particularly in the light of the rise of technology. So actually I'm really glad that my children are not young today, because I think there's a huge task for you with young children, young babies as parents are facing with, how do they relate to technology? And I'm personally concerned about the very rapid and unchecked rise of technology in children's lives. I think we are in the middle of a huge sort of revolution, which is comparable to the printing press when it was invented in the 15th century. Because information is just there, isn't it, on your smartphone. But also I read something recently where scientists were raising concerns about the impact of mobile devices on 3-year-olds' brain development. And one of the points they were making was that, there's a whole lot of young children who are spending a lot of time on mobile devices, and we haven't had the time to find out what the impact of that might be. It's like the whole thing is happening kind of so fast. So I think we're just living in unprecedented times in human history. It's amazing to think back over the course of my lifetime. Well, some of you might remember this. I had to do my one of my dissertations when I was training, and there was a mainframe computer in some part of the city, and you had to input this data in binary into cards, and then send the card off to this place, and then it came back and it was wrong because you'd made some mistake in the binary input, and then you had to do it again. I mean, even 20 years ago, it was just sort of abstract, wasn't it? And kind of, so it's not very long that there's been this sort of huge change. So my question is, how do we practice contentment in the face of fast materialist, consumerist values and technology? How do we create an environment for our children in which that can take its place and in a sort of wise way? And I think it's a part of it's being clear about the family life that you want to create for your children, and the sort of set of values and atmosphere that you want to create in your home. And probably it needs a certain amount of negotiation with the your children's other parent, because people can have widely diverging views about the values of technology and so on. We've never had a television, and that was a decision that we made it was a decision when we made when we started a family, and it hasn't been problematic. And I think the reasons for that are that it was just a very clear, non-negotiable decision. That was just like how it was. And my children, on the whole, sort of accepted that. And I think whenever they did raise it, it was like there was sort of it was just a given in our household. And I'm not saying it should be a given in anybody else's household. I'm just saying it was like it was a given. So if they did complain about it, it was like it almost wasn't a discussion, because it's just kind of like a given. So I think if we are clear as parents what we believe to be important, then actually our children can accept that. So that's the reason that I'm mentioning it. I think the issue of computer screens and mobile devices and so on is much more complex, and they're sort of much more, and they have a sort of an addictive element. But I think we'd have a responsibility to be clear about what values we have and what we're trying to create for our children. Also relating to this is that I think it's really important for children to be bored. I think boredom has a real value, and it's kind of quite often when you're bored that sort of creative things can happen. I can remember my friends who wandering around the house saying, "I'm bored," and I would say, "Okay, well, you're bored. Just be bored, and/or go and sort it out." But I think that's a really important experience, is to have that experience of being bored, because something arises out of that. So I'm just going to end, I think, with one image. So, I think, which is an image that I really like of parenting. So you can, it's a good analogy of parenting. It's like a potter making a pot on a wheel. And you need to make a pot on a wheel, you need two hands. You need one hand in the pot and you need another hand shaping it. And if you don't have both hands, it doesn't work. So, I think with parenting, we need both that inner hand creating or providing love and warmth and nurturing and support. And you need that outer hand, which is providing structure and boundaries and discipline and so on. If you have no hand inside the pot will break, sort of becomes too weak. And if you have no hand outside, then the whole thing just becomes the most horrible sort of mess. So, I think we've got this responsibility to provide clear boundaries in line with developing stillness and simplicity in our family homes. So, getting a visitor. So we've got a few minutes. Yes.